The cold found her first. Not the snow, not the lobby's cathedral silence, just cold. The kind that settled in her chest before her skin registered it. Claire stood at the check-in desk with her passport open and felt the temperature drop inside her like something geological. She'd been traveling for 11 hours. The last train from Geneva had crawled through darkness. She hadn't slept. Hadn't wanted to. Sleep felt too much like surrender. "Welcome to Les Sommets, Miss Rousseau-Batté." The receptionist's smile was practice. "Your room is ready. 4th floor mountain view." Clara nodded. Took her keycard. Her suitcase felt heavier than when she'd packed it. 3 sweaters she'd never wear. A book she wouldn't open. The weight of deciding to come here alone. The lobby stretched behind her. Stone and dark wood, a fireplace large enough to stand in. She could feel the heat from across the room. Could smell wood smoke and something else. Something clean and cold and expensive. That's when she saw her. A woman near the concierge desk, listening to an older couple gesturing toward a map. Tall. Dark hair pulled back so severely it looked like armor. A charcoal suit that fit precisely, unforgivingly. She wasn't smiling, but her face held something close to patience. Or control. Clara looked away. Looked back. The woman's eyes were already on her. Not a glance. Something more sustained. More deliberate. Clara felt it like temperature change. That same cold drop in her chest. But warmer now, contradictory. She tucked her hair behind her ear. A nervous habit she hated. The woman's gaze didn't waver. Then she turned back to the couple, said something in flawless French. The moment broke. Clara exhaled without realizing she'd been holding her breath. She unpacked without intention. Left her suitcase open like she might flee. The room was beautiful in that aggressively neutral way luxury hotels achieve. She stood at the window and watched snow fall in thick, lazy spirals. The bar was nearly empty when she came down an hour later. 2 men at a corner table. A woman alone with a laptop. And the fireplace burning with confident heat. Clara chose a seat at the bar itself. Ordered red wine without looking at the list. When it arrived, a small plate of cheese and almonds came with it. "Compliments of the house," the bartender said, gesturing vaguely toward the far side of the room. Clara turned. The woman from the lobby sat at a small table near the windows, a leather portfolio open, a pen in her hand. She wasn't looking at Clara now, just staring at whatever she'd been writing with the kind of stillness that suggested she'd forgotten the page existed. Clara's heartbeat did something arrhythmic. When she looked back, the woman was watching her. This time, there was no pretending it was accidental. Their eyes met across 20 feet of warm, firelit air, and Clara felt the floor tilt slightly. The woman stood, closed her portfolio with deliberate care, crossed the room with a posture that suggested she'd spent her entire life learning how to take up exactly the right amount of space. She stopped beside Clara's bar stool. "I hope the wine is acceptable." Her voice was low, accented, French with something underneath it. "We have a limited selection this week. The roads have been unreliable." Clara's mouth went dry. "It's perfect. Thank you." A pause. Not awkward. Just present. "Margot de Champs," the woman said and extended her hand. "I managed the result." Clara shook it. Margot's grip was firm, cool, brief. "Clara Rousseau. American? My father was French. I grew up in Boston." Margot nodded. "You're here alone." It wasn't a question. Clara felt exposed anyway. "Yes, most of our guests travel in pairs this time of year." Margot's gaze didn't waver. Didn't judge. Just observed. "It's unusual. I needed to get away." From what? The question was so direct it should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like relief. Like someone finally asking the thing no one else would. Clara looked at her wine. Everything. Another pause. Clara could hear the fire crackling. Could smell that scent again. Vetiver, maybe. Cedar. something that belonged to winter. "The forecast suggests we may be snowed in for a few days," Margot said. Her tone was professional, but something underneath felt like a warning. Or a promise. "If you need anything, please ask the staff. Or find me." Clara finally looked up. Margot's eyes were dark, unreadable, tired in a way that suggested years, not hours. "I will," Clara said. Margot held her gaze for one beat longer than necessary, then nodded, turned, walked back toward the lobby. Clara watched her go. Watched until she disappeared around a corner without looking back. Clara's hands were shaking. She drank the rest of her wine too fast. Sat at the bar for 40 minutes watching snow accumulate, trying to convince herself that nothing had happened. That a hotel manager had simply introduced herself. She went back to her room just after 11. The hallways were silent, amber lit. Her key card beeped. The door opened. The bed was still too large. She didn't undress. Just sat on the edge of the mattress and stared at her hands. Leia used to say she had nervous hands. That she touched her face too much, twisted her rings, couldn't sit still. Leia used to find it charming, then annoying. Then, toward the end, just another thing they didn't talk about. Clara wondered what Margot would think of her hands. Wondered, and hated herself for wondering. She lay back against the pillows, fully clothed. Closed her eyes. Listened to the silence of expensive insulation. But the cold had already found her. Had been inside her since the moment she stepped off the train. Or maybe longer. She opened her eyes. The ceiling was white. Unmarked. She thought about Margot's hands on that pen. The wedding ring that wasn't there anymore but had left a faint line on her fourth finger. Clara had noticed. Had stared long enough to see the evidence of something removed. Clara rolled onto her side. The window reflected her own dim outline. Snow kept falling. Would keep falling. The roads were already closed. She was trapped here. The word should have felt claustrophobic. It didn't. Morning came pale and persistent. Clara woke to whiteness pressing against the windows like something alive. She'd slept in her clothes. The clock read 8:47, which felt both too early and too late. She showered. Let the water run hotter than comfortable. When she emerged, the windows had fogged completely. She wiped a circle clear and looked out at nothing. Just snow, still falling. The dining room was half full. Families at tables near the windows. Solo travelers scattered throughout. Clara took a croissant she didn't want and coffee she needed. Found a small table near the back. She was halfway through her coffee when she felt it. That awareness. That shift in temperature. Margot stood near the buffet speaking quietly with the server. She wore black today, trousers and a fitted sweater. Her hair pulled back again, that same severe precision. She was pointing at something on a clipboard, her expression neutral. Then she looked up. Found Clara immediately, as if she'd known exactly where to look. Their eyes met. Held. Clara's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. Margot said something to the server, then crossed the room and stopped beside Clara's table. "May I?" Clara nodded before her brain could construct a reason to say no. Margot sat, folded her hands around her espresso cup. "Didn't drink. Did you sleep well?" "Not really." Clara surprised herself with honesty. "The bed's too big." Something flickered in Margot's expression. "Most guests complain that the beds are too small." "I'm not most guests." "No," Margot said softly. "You're not." Silence settled. Clara could hear the family at the next table, the clink of silverware, but all of it felt distant. "The forecast hasn't improved," Margot said. "We're expecting another 30 centimeters by tonight. The roads won't open until at least Monday. That's 3 more days, yes." Clara looked at her untouched croissant. "Do people panic when they're trapped?" "Some do." Margot's thumb traced the rim of her cup. A small gesture Clara found herself watching too closely. Others settle in. Most people adapt. "Which kind are you?" Margot's eyes lifted. "I don't have the luxury of panic. This is my job." That's not an answer. The corner of Margot's mouth moved, not quite a smile. No, it's not. Clara wanted to ask more. Wanted to know if that ring had been removed recently or years ago. Instead, she said, I might check out the library. Second floor. East wing. Margot paused. It's quiet. You say that like it's a warning. Everything quiet is a warning, Miss Rousseau. The formality felt like distance and intimacy simultaneously. Clara tucked her hair behind her ear, caught herself, stopped. Margot noticed. Clara could tell she noticed. I should get back to work, Margot said, but didn't stand. Just sat there, still not drinking her espresso. Of course, Clara said. Neither of them moved. Then Margot stood, finally. Enjoy your day, Clara. The use of her first name felt like falling. The library was exactly as described. East wing, second floor, silent. Shelves lined 3 walls. 2 deep armchairs faced a window. A small writing desk sat in the corner. Clara chose an armchair, picked a book at random, stared at words that refused to organize into meaning. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Margot entered carrying her leather portfolio. She stopped when she saw Clara. Something crossed her face, surprise or something more complicated. I'm sorry. I didn't realize anyone was here. I can work elsewhere. It's a shared space, Clara said. You don't have to leave. Margot considered this, then nodded and moved to the writing desk. Uncapped her pen with a small click. Clara tried to read, managed 3 sentences before losing the thread. She could hear Margot behind her, the whisper of pen on paper, occasional pauses. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Clara turned pages she wasn't reading. Behind her, Margot's pen moved steadily. It felt like the most intimate thing Clara had done in months. Finally, she gave up pretending. Closed the book. Let her head fall back and just existed in the space. Are you finding what you need? Margot's voice startled her. Clara turned. Margot had stopped writing, looking at her with focused attention. I'm sorry? In the book? Are you finding what you need? Clara glanced at the closed novel, laughed quietly. I haven't read a word. Then why choose this room? You said it was quiet. It is. Margot set down her pen. But you don't strike me as someone who needs quiet. You seem more like someone running from noise. Clara's chest tightened. Is there a difference? Yes. Margot stood, crossed to the window. Needing quiet is about peace. Running from noise is about fear. Which are you? Both, I think. Clara wanted to close the space between them. Instead, she stayed in her chair. How long have you worked here? 7 years. Do you ever leave? Not often. Margot's voice was careful. This place requires constant attention, and I prefer the mountains to the city. Prefer or hide. Margot turned, looked at Clara directly. You ask very personal questions for someone I met yesterday. He said I could ask for anything I need. I meant fresh towels. Room service. I know what you meant. The air between them felt charged. Clara became suddenly aware of how still her body had gone, as if movement might shatter something fragile. Why are you nervous? Margot asked quietly. Clara could have lied. Instead, she met Margot's eyes and said, You? Margot went very still. Then footsteps in the hallway, loud, approaching. A staff member appeared speaking rapid French. Something urgent about the kitchen. Margot responded, nodded, turned back to Clara. I'm sorry. I have to go, Clara said. I understand. Margot gathered her portfolio, stopped at the door and looked back. Clara, yes? This conversation isn't finished. Then she was gone. Evening came early. Clara returned to her room, showered, changed. Went down to the bar, ate tea. Margot wasn't there. Clara ordered wine. Sat at the same stool. Watched families finish dinner. Couples hold hands across tables. She was on her second glass when Margot appeared. Not at Clara's side this time. Just entering the bar, scanning the room. Her eyes found Clara, stopped. Something in her expression shifted. Margot crossed to the bar, stood beside Clara's stool but didn't sit. I apologize for earlier. The interruption was unavoidable. You don't need to apologize. I prefer to finish conversations I start. Clara looked up at her. Are you free now? Margot hesitated. For a few minutes, may I? She gestured to the empty stool. Clara nodded. Margot sat. Ordered nothing. Just folded her hands on the bar. You asked why I'm nervous around you, Clara said quietly. You don't have to answer that, I know. Clara turned her wine glass. But I think I want to. Margot waited. I came here because I was tired of pretending, Clara said. Tired of being the version of myself that other people need. And then I met you, and you looked at me like you could see through all of it. She paused. That terrifies me. Margot's hands tightened against the bar. I don't know you, Clara. I know what I see, what I recognize, which is someone who's never allowed herself to want anything she wasn't supposed to want. Clara's breath caught. Margot stood then, before the moment could extend into something neither was ready for. But she didn't leave immediately. Instead, her hand moved, just slightly, just enough, and her fingers brushed against Clara's wrist where it rested on the bar. Just for a second. Just skin on skin. Deliberate. Clara felt it like electric current. Good night, Clara, Margot said, her voice barely steady. Then she walked away. Clara sat alone, staring at her wrist where Margot had touched her. The skin still felt warm, still held the ghost of contact. She'd done that on purpose, had broken her own rule, had touched Clara with intention, not accident. Something had shifted. Clara didn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying that touch. Margot's fingers against her wrist, brief but unmistakable. A choice, not a mistake. Morning came without rest. She avoided breakfast, went straight to the spa, hoping water and solitude might quiet her thoughts. The pool was empty. She slipped in, floated, tried not to think. When she emerged 20 minutes later, Margot was standing in the doorway. Not entering, just standing there in her usual precision, black trousers, charcoal sweater. She held a tablet, clearly working, clearly not expecting to find Clara here. I'm sorry, Margot said. I didn't know anyone was using the pool. Clara wrapped herself in the robe, suddenly hyper-aware of her wet hair, bare feet, damp skin. I was just leaving. You don't have to. I should get dressed. Margot nodded, but didn't move. Just stood there looking at Clara with that same focused attention. Did you sleep? Margot asked. No. You? No. The admission felt significant. Clara tightened the robe's belt. I think about what you said, Clara said quietly. About wanting things I'm not supposed to want. Margot closed her eyes briefly. Clara, I'm not asking you to respond. I just needed you to know that I heard you. This isn't appropriate. What isn't? This conversation. This, she gestured between them. I'm 13 years older than you. I work here. You're a guest. There are boundaries that exist for good reasons. I know, Clara said. Then, do you want there to be? Margot went very still. What I want is irrelevant. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you. Clara nodded. Walked past Margot, close enough to smell vetiver and cedar. Close enough to notice that Margot's hands were shaking against the tablet. She avoided Margot for the rest of the day. Stayed in her room. Ordered lunch from room service. Tried reading, tried sleeping, tried anything that would quiet the loop of thoughts. Evening came. Clara dressed for dinner because staying in her room felt like cowardice. Chose a corner table, away from windows, away from families who seemed to exist in a different reality. Margot appeared halfway through her meal. Not at her table. Just moving through the dining room, speaking with guests, checking in, performing her role. She didn't look at Clara. Didn't acknowledge her at all. Then their eyes met. Just for a moment. Just long enough for Clara to see something flicker. recognition, longing, resignation, before Margot looked away and continued her rounds. Clara's food went cold. She left at 9, took her wine to her room. The hallways were quiet, thickly carpeted. She walked slowly, trying to remember her room number. She turned left, then right, realized she'd ended up in a service corridor narrower than the guest hallways. Footsteps behind her. Clara. She turned. Margot stood 10 feet away, still in work clothes, looking at Clara with an expression she couldn't read. "I'm lost," Clara said, laughing quietly. "I can't find my room. You're on the wrong floor." Margot moved closer. Stopped 3 feet away. "You're on 5. You need 4. Right. Of course." Clara looked at her wine glass. "Thank you." Neither moved. "I'll walk you back," Margot said finally. They walked in silence. Down one corridor, then another. Clara was hyper-aware of Margot beside her. The sound of her heels, the scent of vetiver, the 3 feet of distance between them like magnetism in reverse. "Here," Margot said, stopping at Clara's door. "Room 412. Clara fumbled for her keycard. Dropped it. Then to retrieve it at the same moment, Margot did. Their hands touched. Just fingers brushing against carpet. Just skin on skin for half a second. Clara felt it in her chest, her throat, the base of her spine. Felt time slow crystallize around this single point of contact. Margot pulled back first. Stood. Handed Clara the keycard without meeting her eyes. "Thank you," Clara whispered. Margot started to turn away. "Wait." Margot stopped. Didn't turn back. Just stood there, shoulders tense. "I know this isn't appropriate," Clara said. "I know all the reasons this is wrong. But I need you to know. I didn't come here looking for this. I didn't want to feel this way. But I do. And I think you do too." Silence stretched between them. Finally, Margot turned. Looked at Clara with eyes that held years of loneliness, longing, exhaustion. "It doesn't matter what I feel," Margot said quietly. "Why not?" "Because I won't do this to you. I won't be the thing you run to because you're escaping something else." Her voice was gentle but firm. "You deserve better than that. That's not what this is, isn't it? No?" Clara took a step closer. "I'm not running to you. I'm here. And you're here. And I've spent my entire life pretending I don't want things I'm not supposed to want. And I'm tired, Margot." Margot's composure cracked. She raised one hand as if to touch Clara's face, then stopped herself, fingers hovering between them. "Clara," she said, and it sounded like surrender and refusal simultaneously. "You don't have to do anything," Clara whispered. "I just needed you to know." Margot's hand fell. She took a step back. "I should go, I know." But neither moved. They stood there, 3 feet apart, looking at each other like people memorizing something they knew they couldn't keep. Finally, Margot turned. Walked away, though Clara could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands shook. Clara watched until she disappeared. Then let herself into her room. Closed the door. Leaned against it and slid down to the floor, still holding her wine glass. She touched her wrist, the place where Margot's fingers had brushed. The skin still felt warm. Wanting her didn't feel reckless. It felt forbidden in a quieter, more dangerous way. She went to bed fully clothed. Stared at the ceiling. Thought about Margot's hand almost touching her face. Thought about the word inappropriate, and all the ways it was true, and all the ways it didn't matter. The snow fell. The hotel slept. Clara lay awake. Clara didn't see Margot the next day. Not at breakfast. Not in the hallways. Not anywhere. The resort felt emptier in her absence. She spent the morning in her room. Tried to work, stared at emails, closed her laptop. Leia had sent messages. Her mother, too. Her sister wanted to know if she was okay. Clara deleted them without responding. Around noon, she went to the library. Same armchairs, same window, but the room felt different now, smaller without Margot's presence. She stayed for 2 hours. Read nothing. Thought in circles. Admitted to herself that she was waiting for Margot to appear. But Margot didn't come. At 3, Clara went to the spa. Swam laps until her arms ached. When she emerged, Margot was there. Standing beside the pool, tablet in hand, speaking to a maintenance worker. Margot glanced up. Saw Clara dripping and breathless. Something flickered across her face. Then immediate shutdown. A door closing. "Miss Rousseau," she said, formal, distant. "I hope the facilities are satisfactory." Miss Rousseau. The formality was a slap. "Everything's fine," Clara managed. Margot nodded, returned her attention to the maintenance worker, continued her conversation as if Clara had already left. Clara grabbed her towel, left without looking back. In the changing room, she sat on the bench and felt something inside her harden. This is what it looks like when someone chooses not to want you back. Dinner was unbearable. She forced herself to go because hiding felt like admitting defeat. Ordered food she didn't want. Moved it around her plate. Margot appeared at 7:30. Same routine, moving through the dining room, checking on guests. But tonight, she didn't look at Clara. Not once. Clara felt each moment of non-recognition like withdrawal. She left her dinner half-eaten. Went to the bar. Ordered wine she didn't drink. A woman took the stool beside her. Early 40s, kind eyes, American accent. Rough day. Clara looked up. "Something like that. I'm Sarah. Stuck here like everyone else." They talked for 20 minutes. Surface things. Sarah was easy to talk to, undemanding. "There's a woman," Sarah said suddenly. "Isn't there?" Clara's breath caught. "What? You have that look? Like part of you is somewhere else." Clara considered denying it. Instead, yes. Does she know? She knows. And she's choosing not to do anything about it. Sarah nodded. Sometimes that's the kindest choice. It doesn't feel kind. No, Sarah agreed. It probably doesn't. She finished her drink. Sometimes the thing we want most is exactly the thing we shouldn't have. And the people who love us enough to say no are doing us a favor, even when it feels like cruelty. She squeezed Clara's shoulder and left. Clara sat alone. Her phone buzzed. "Leia, I hope you're finding what you're looking for." Clara stared at the message. Typed, "Me too." At 10, she went back to her room. The hallways were quiet. She walked slowly, key card in hand. She was 10 feet from her door when she heard it. "Clara." She stopped, turned. Margot stood at the end of the hallway, still in work clothes, but something in her posture looked strained. They looked at each other across 20 feet. "I can't do this," Margot said quietly. Clara's heart fractured. "I know. You don't understand." Margot took a step closer, then stopped. "I can't be near you without..." She stopped, shook her head. "I'm trying to do the right thing, but every time I see you, She pressed her palms against her temples. "I requested a transfer," Margot said finally, "to our property in Geneva, effective after New Year's." The words hit like cold water. "You're leaving?" Clara said. "I have to. Because of me. Because of myself." Margot looked at her fully. "Because I'm 40 years old and I've spent my life making responsible choices, and I won't let myself take advantage of someone young and vulnerable just because we're both lonely, stuck in a snowstorm. What if this isn't just loneliness?" Clara's voice came out small. "Later than intended. Doesn't matter what it is." Margot's voice was gentle but immovable. "You'll leave in 3 days. You'll go back to your life. You'll realize this was just a moment, and I refuse to be someone's almost happened story. You don't get to decide what this means to me." "No, but I get to decide what I'm willing to live with." Silence stretched, heavy and final. "When do you leave?" Clara asked. "January 2nd. After I'm gone, yes." Clara nodded. "Then I guess this is goodbye." Margot's composure cracked. Tears gathered in her eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Good night, Margot," Clara said quietly. Margot stood there one more moment, memorizing, Clara thought. Then turned and walked away. Clara watched until she disappeared. Then let herself into her room. Closed the door. Leaned against it and finally let herself cry. Quietly, exhaustedly. The tears of someone who'd run out of ways to pretend she wasn't breaking. She slid down to the floor. Sat with her back against the door, knees pulled to chest. She touched her wrist. The warmth was gone now. Just skin. Just memory. The hotel was quiet. Everything was quiet except the snow against glass and her own breathing in the dark. The next day was New Year's Eve. Clara woke to silence. Not muffled quiet, but actual silence. She went to the window and saw it. Blue sky. Brilliant, shocking blue. The first clear sky in 6 days. Sun touched the mountain peaks, turning snow to diamonds. The roads would open soon. She could leave. She packed mechanically. Folded clothes. Organized toiletries. Closed her suitcase with finality. Her phone showed 17 missed calls. She turned it off again and sat on the bed, looking at her packed suitcase. At noon, she left her room. The resort felt different in sunlight, smaller, more ordinary. Guests were animated, planning departures. The lobby buzzed with the chaos of people preparing to re-enter their lives. Clara walked through it all like a ghost. Found the library. Sat in the same armchair. Stared out at mountains finally visible. The door opened. She didn't turn. Didn't need to. She could feel Margot's presence, a shift in air pressure, a change in temperature. Margot crossed the room. Stopped beside Clara's chair. Stood in silence. Finally, Clara looked up. Margot wasn't in her work clothes. She wore jeans, the first time Clara had seen her in anything casual, and a cream sweater. Her hair was down. Actually down, falling past her shoulders in dark waves. She looked younger this way, more vulnerable. "The road's open tomorrow," Margot said quietly. "I know. You'll be able to leave, yes." Silence. Clara could hear voices from the hallway. "I came to apologize," Margot said. "For the other night. I handled that poorly. You were honest. I was scared." Margot sat in the chair beside Clara's. "I'm still scared." Clara's heart stuttered. Of what? Of wanting something I can't control. Of being 40 years old and feeling like a teenager because a woman I barely know looks at me like... She stopped. "Like I'm worth wanting." "You are. You don't know me, Clara. You know who I am in this moment when we're both suspended from our real lives." "You're right," Clara said. "I don't know all of that. But I know how I feel when you look at me. I know I've spent 6 days feeling more alive than I have in years. I know I came here running from everything and found something worth running toward." She paused. "And I know you feel it too." Margot closed her eyes. "What is this, Clara? Tell me." Clara thought about all the ways she could minimize it, make it smaller, safer. Instead, she told the truth. "I think I'm falling in love with you," she said quietly. "I know it's too fast. I know it's complicated, but that doesn't make it less true." Margot opened her eyes. They were wet with tears. "I canceled my transfer," she whispered. Clara's breath caught. "What? This morning?" "I told them I needed to stay, that I had unfinished business." "Margot, I've been running my entire life. From feeling too much, from wanting things that scared me." She turned to face Clara. "And then you arrived. And every time you looked at me like I was something precious instead of just competent, I felt something crack open." Clara reached out, took Margot's hand, felt the tremor in it. I'm scared too, Clara said. But I don't want to walk away without trying. Margot looked at their joined hands. I'm too old for you. No, you're not. I have responsibilities. I can't just... I'm not asking you to give up anything. I'm just asking you to stop running. Margot was crying now. Silent tears. If we do this, it won't be easy. We'll have to figure out distance and difference and all the ways our lives don't align. It might not work at all, I know. And you still want to try. Clara squeezed her hand. Yes, do you? Margot didn't answer with words. Instead, she leaned forward slowly, brought her free hand to Clara's face, cupped her jaw with infinite gentleness. Yes, she whispered, and kissed her. It was soft, careful, a question and an answer. Margot's lips were warm, slightly trembling. Clara felt her entire body ignite, not explosively, but with slow burn. The kiss deepened. Clara's hand came to Margot's hair, pulled her closer. Margot made a small sound, surrender or relief, and kissed her harder. They broke apart breathless, foreheads pressed together. Oh, Clara whispered. Yes, Margot agreed. They stayed like that, breathing each other's air, neither willing to create distance. What happens now? Clara asked. Margot pulled back to look at her. I don't know. But we figure it out together. They kissed again. Slower. Just present. Come with me, Margot said finally. Where? My apartment. It's private. Clara understood what she was offering. Lead the way. Margot's apartment was small, spare. A living room with kitchenette, one bedroom. Windows facing the mountain. Everywhere. Clara looked around. Saw Margot's life condensed into these rooms. Saw the wedding photo turned face down on a shelf. Saw the loneliness in the single coffee cup. The reading chair for one. Tell me something real, Clara said. Something you've never told anyone. Margot was quiet. Then, I was married for 12 years. He was kind. And I was miserable every single day because I was pretending to be someone I wasn't. I knew before we married. Knew I was attracted to women. But I thought I could choose differently. When did you leave? 3 years ago. Moved here. Started over. Told myself I was too old for anything complicated. And now? Now I think maybe it's never too late to stop lying to yourself. Clara kissed her. Long and slow. Felt Margot respond. Felt her hands frame Clara's face. They moved to the bedroom slowly. With intention. Margot's hands shook as she unbuttoned Clara's shirt. As she traced her collarbone, her shoulder. They undressed each other with care. Everything slowed. Touch became language. Nothing needed to be explained. Clara had never felt so present in her own body. Every place Margot touched felt like coming home. After, they lay tangled together, afternoon light, painting stripes across the sheets. I don't want you to leave tomorrow, Margot said. I don't want to leave either. But I'll come back. We'll make it work. You don't know that. No, but I want to try. Margot pulled her closer. Yes. They stayed in bed until evening. Talked and kissed and existed in the suspension between decision and consequence. At 9 they dressed for dinner. Clara in her one dress. Margot in black silk. The dining room was transformed. Candles. Champagne. Guests celebrating with manic energy. Margot and Clara sat at a small table near the windows. Didn't hide their proximity. Just existed together, hands occasionally brushing. At midnight, champagne glasses rose. The countdown began. Happy New Year, Margot said. Happy New Year. They kissed as the clock struck 12. Around them, strangers celebrated. But Clara felt alone with Margot, suspended in their private moment. The next morning came too soon. Clara packed the last of her things. Stood at the window looking at mountains she'd barely seen. Margot knocked at 9:30. Professional clothes again. Armor back in place. But her eyes were soft. Ready? She asked. No. But I have to be. They rode the elevator in silence. Walked through the lobby where Clara had first arrived 7 days ago. A different person then. The car waited outside. Blue sky overhead. Clear roads. Margot carried Clara's suitcase. Set it in the trunk. Turned to face her. "This isn't goodbye," Clara said. "No. Just see you soon. 2 weeks. I'll be here." They kissed. Brief, appropriate. But Clara felt everything in it. "Thank you," Margot said. "For not letting me run." "Thank you for the same thing." Clara got in the car. Watched through the rear window as Margot stood in front of the hotel, getting smaller until a turn erased her completely. Clara leaned back. Felt the weight of leaving and the lightness of knowing she'd return. Her phone buzzed. Margot, already counting the days. Clara typed, "Me too." Mountains receded. The world opened ahead. And somewhere between ending and beginning, Clara felt something settle. Not closure, but quiet recognition that she'd finally stopped running from herself. In the space between wanting and having, 2 women found each other, and learned that sometimes the most radical act is choosing not to run. What does it cost us to want only what we're allowed to want? If this story touched your heart, share your truth in the comments. And if this journey stayed with you, please subscribe to Secret Garden Stories. Your support helps build a world with more love and less prejudice. Thank you for being here.